What's going on, guys? On this episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, coaches Skip, Andrew, and myself answer your questions as we always do. If you have any questions for the next show, then comment below. We'll be happy to tackle them then. And hey, if you're new here, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell. Andrew's been coaching for 14 years. I'm at 13. Skip's been coaching for 20 years. And we're here today to freely share our education with you so that you can be better at the sport that we love. This week, we talk about machines versus free weights. Why have machines gotten such a bad rep? Training everything once a week versus higher frequency. We talk about seal rows. We have important questions like, do you use a fork or a spoon, a plate or a bowl for your meals? Should you ramp down gear at the end of your cycle? Which minor convenience would you wish upon your worst enemies? How have our mindsets and ideas changed as coaches over the years? Plus, handling Ramadan as a bodybuilder. That'll be a special treat for our Muslim viewers. I hope you guys enjoy the program. Like I said, comment with your questions, plus all your comments. They're helping to boost us up, and we appreciate all your positivity. Let's get this thing started. All right. So we had a question from Isaac. This is actually, I believe he posted this on Patreon. And we're going to take this first one. He says, I find there is more direct and greater stimulation with machines, making for greater inroads since there is no effort utilized in balancing the weight. Why are machines so frowned upon, especially from old school bodybuilders?
For the very reason that he mentioned about not having to balance out the weight. When you don't balance out the weight, stabilizers aren't hit. I think it can look. I don't know that because I consider myself old school. Obviously, I'm old, and therefore old school comes very natural to me. I was around before hammer strength. Yes, I've been around that long. Machines play an integral role in the development. I mean, look, I think good machines, the hammer strength and things like that, really have played into better development over the years to some degree. I don't question that. But I think if you start relying on them and you get away from the compound exercise or the exercises where you have to use a lot more stabilizers, you're just missing. You can potentially create imbalances. You can create weaknesses and stabilizers. I think that's why they're frowned upon. I don't think they're bad. If I had to say, I think the next question always somebody would be, well, then what part is machines and what? But there's no number, there's no ratio or anything else. But I think that it would be more beneficial if people stayed with the compound free weight dumbbell exercise, dumbbell barbell exercises, things like that, and not just trade them all in for machines. You do have people who've been very successful with me. You got a lot of people, quite frankly. I mean, you can watch any of the top pros, and the large majority of them use machines. They're arguably safer from a standpoint of, you're not going to fuck something up as much on a hammer strength bench as you are a barbell bench, or dumbbell presses are very laborious to get heavy dumbbells into place and things like that. I think that's why they're frowned upon, but I don't think they're necessarily bad versus good. Use them both. I'll leave it at that.
You might even say that a lot of times bodybuilders get injured because they're using too many machines, because it's taken away the stabilizing work, and putting, when they go back to, say, a barbell or a dumbbell exercise, free weights, they're putting undue stress on the joint tissue, which hasn't experienced that force load for a while. And I think that might be where a lot of bodybuilders, and here's where I'm going with this, is that how many times do you hear about bodybuilders tearing a pec or a bicep or something after a contest season? And yes, I know, there's many multi factors that come into play there, but I think another reason is a lot of bodybuilders over that last 4 weeks, they get away from the incline barbell presses, they get away from the squats, they're doing more of the machine works, the hammer strength, the hoist presses, as much as they can, maybe for the simple fact that, I don't want to lug, all these dumbbells into place, or I don't want to have to pick a 45-pound plate up and put it up onto an incline or a shoulder press. I got a machine where I can just move a pin, do that for me. Just, like when you're really dog tired and prep, those little decisions kind of do come across your mind of like, I don't really feel like doing that. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of echoing Skip's statement that, it's easier in a sense because it's doing the stabilization for you. And there's a time and place for it, absolutely. And I think, you know, a 50-50 split is more than enough for machines versus free weights.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys come across this sometimes. You know, I'll have people. Here's a thought. First of all, by using a free weight, the thought is that, you know, he said you don't have to stabilize it, so you can target the muscle better. You know, just simply through having to stabilize the muscle, you can activate more tissue. So there is going to be that you're going to get more overall mass development in the compound movement, like say a dumbbell press, than you're going to be able to out of, say, like a hammer strength machine. Just had been in my experience, and that's what we've all kind of gravitated to, you know, for mass growth, keeping it simple, keeping it big and basic. But you can only do that for so long. Like, you can only push your work. Here's my thought is that I would say, you know, use those free weight exercises earlier in your workout, and then when you can no longer, when your endurance is getting knocked down, when your strength is getting knocked down, then moving to a machine, then you can still continue to push. You know, early in a workout, I know I have personally a lot of strength, and I could do a free weight movement where after I've pushed and given 110%, I might not be able to repeat that again. But if I did need to do another exercise, then I were to use something that was in a fixed track and I'm pressing. Now that's all I have to do is press. I can then get deeper and, you know, go further into the muscle. So a lot of times what I suggest to people, if somebody comes to me and their goal is to grow muscle and we look at their workouts, if they are using all machines, then I'll have them at least start with free weights. Like you were saying, you know, 50-50. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And you know what, another place for machines is really good is if you get injured. You know, there's times that, like, if I were left to doing a barbell back squat, I just wouldn't be able to train, you know, if that's the only option I had.
Yep. Have you ever seen anybody tear a pec on a hammer strength press?
Yeah.
Have you?
I guess what? No, I mean, and we may have, but the point is it's incredibly rare and uncommon. And that's the thing. I mean, I want to emphasize that it's not, you know, I don't think 60-40, maybe even 70-30 with, you know, machines to free weight is a bad thing. It's when you get to 90-10 and you sit there for a while, or 80-20 and you sit there for a while. That's a little bit different, you know. And when I say 80-20 in favor of, you know, machines, but there are people, like I said, who've been incredibly successful. You're going to see arguments on both sides. On the one hand, there's pros and cons to both, I guess is the best way to say it. So to keep it relatively balanced, just so that one isn't way out of whack as far as a ratio, I think you're going to be a lot better off in the. And you make a very good point about the stabilizers being weak after a while, and then you come back to them, and that's a very, think about the strength, especially the bigger you are and the stronger you are. If you've got a lot of strength and you're coming off a big run with machines, and you start going with dumbbell presses and barbell presses, and you're starting to bang after those calories up, and your weight comes up after a show, I hear them knocking. Opportunity is right there knocking at the door. Yeah. I see you through the peephole.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. That guy actually had a ton of questions. I'll bring his thing back up, see if there's anything else we want to do. Bodybuilders that follow bro splits, especially when they're enhanced, does it seriously take a whole 6 days for a muscle group to recover? I've just recently learned about push-pull legs and how it allows a higher frequency of training. Would it be more beneficial to hit a muscle group twice in 1 week rather than one? Scott Stevenson's watching.
Yeah, these are good questions, because a lot of that answer depends upon frequency, intensity, and volume. Everybody's recovery is different. So, you know, I'll use myself as an example. If I train a muscle group more than once a week, I'm going to bury myself pretty quickly. The reason isn't because it's just once a week. It's because I don't like to pull back from my intensity and my volume, because to train the same muscle group twice a week, I would have to do that. Otherwise, my recovery wouldn't be there. My recovery would be compromised. And I've always said throughout the years, you know, on gear, off gear, whatever, I am not one of the people in the industry of sport who has great recovery ability. Now, the volume and, of course, the intensity and things like that, man, I don't want to pull those things back. I like those things being constant. Again, it's a preference. It's a personal preference thing. So for me to train everything once a week is ideal for me. Sometimes if I go 8 or 9 days, I'll actually even come back a little bit stronger and my joints will feel a little bit better. So to get down into training something twice a week, I mean, I've tried it with legs and things like that. I can't pull back enough on the volume and intensity to make that happen. It doesn't sit well on my brain.
You're a guy too, like you came up when DC training was super popular. So, and I know you've tried going to higher frequency. Well, I mean, how long did you give DC a run? Because what I'm thinking to myself is you've done this a long time. I know you've given higher frequency a fair shake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did DC for almost 3 years. And I made very, very good gains on it. But here's the catch. DC in its most simple form, following it by the book, I can't do rest pause. In 3 or 4 weeks, I'm overtrained. I mean, I'm beat to shit. So I actually had to do for the large part of those 3 years, almost 3 years, 2.5, 2 3/4, something like that. I had to just do straight sets to failure. And I grew like fucking crazy, but I hated it. And here's the thing. You never hate growing. You never hate progressing. But I just hated walking out of there going, I just want to do more work. I can do more work. And we said this on the last podcast, and someone complimented us on it, which I appreciated. It isn't about what you can do. It's about what is most optimal. But when you have trained for a while and you have that feeling and you enjoy the aspect of training, that's where I have the option, 2 main options. I can keep my volume very, very low and walk out dissatisfied and progress relatively well, or I can have the increased volume, train once each muscle group once a week and walk out of there feeling better and just a good workout. And I've kind of rode the drug a little bit, or rode the high, because I'm in there longer and I'm enjoying the workout. I'm enjoying the pump. I'm enjoying how everything feels, the fluidity of everything. And that's just what I choose. I don't know that one is better than the other. As long as you're providing and I know Dante says that training more frequently is better. But my argument to that is that I'm not saying he's wrong. All I'm saying is my counter argument to that is if you're going to grow X amount from, let's say you're going to train twice a week, you grow 50% of what you would grow if you trained once a week. In the end, it's the same progression as far as growth. Now, can you put black and white numbers on that and make that of course not. But that's how I see it. If you're going to bomb the hell out of something once a week, or you're going to half bomb it twice a week, and you're going to grow the same, I'd rather do it once a week and walk out of there satisfied. It's just that, it's that drug thing. It's that preference. It's that we do what it was always difficult for me to hold back on that volume. I did not enjoy the process. Did enjoy growing, but I did not enjoy the workouts.
You bring up a really good point. You have to love what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like you can't follow a training plan that you don't enjoy and stick to it. There's no, I mean, we train because, why do we do bodybuilding in general? Most of it's because most of us, we do it because we love the gym. We love working out. And if sure, that's not your style, like people who don't like progressive overload, it's like, I think progressive overload can be really great, but if you don't like progressive overload, then, it's not going to work for you long term. You're not going to have fun with it. You're not going to stick with it. It's really Scott Stevenson who introduced me to that, because I had this thing I wrote up to send to a client, and it was about getting focused and being able to build your intensity up in the gym and what it takes. And Scott said, yeah, this is really good if that person wants to be like that. This is several years ago. Mm-hmm. He was like, if that person wants to be like that, if they don't want to be like that, they can have just as good of a workout and have a different attitude, Yeah. I was like, huh. Yeah.
And I've got a point to add to this too, because I think, and this is really important, I don't want to get off on a side note, but this is important. When I have a client come to me, a female client, and they say, I don't know if I should compete. I don't know if I want to go physique. I don't know if I want to go figure. I usually throw at them, what style of training do you enjoy more? Because the style of training is pretty different from figure to physique. And the reason I do that is because 99% of the time that you're going to spend getting to your goal in either division is going to be the training, and it's going to be more specific with figure, or it's not going to be more specific, but it's going to be different. So which one, because you're going to be spending so much time doing it, which one do you enjoy more? Because you need to enjoy the process and the journey. And I'm going to say this for the record. I think there are a lot of the younger generation right now who do not, and it's their business, it's fine, but they don't enjoy the process. They want the pro card, they want the attention, they want the social media, they want the titles, all that good shit, but they don't really enjoy being in the gym and the pounding and the grinding and the diet and everything else.
Yeah.
They just enjoy they're trying to get to the finish line as quickly as possible, and to each their own. But you don't find that with the old school guys as much. They're more satisfied with the process than crossing the finish line.
If I can also add to his question, I'll say this. All that said, my thought is that if you every time, if you can trigger growth more frequently, then you can grow faster. That my thought is that if you can do something you hadn't done before, then you can trigger growth, and then you can recover from it, however long it takes, and then you do it again. The more frequently you can make that happen, the faster I think you can grow. I will say also though, if you're doing a push-pull legs and everything's being hit, twice every 7 days, then you've got 100 workouts under your belt versus 50. I don't know how much, the volume matters, but if we're just looking at the triggering of growth, if I'm triggering growth 100 times versus 50 times, and that would be an argument toward trying to be more progressive. That'd be my thought.
Sure. The argument though is whether that would actually happen if you get that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to echo what Skip was saying, is that you're either giving it a full dose or you're giving it a half dose twice a week, basically, right?
But you?
So which one works out better?
But do you really need to do all of that? If I can work up to something I hadn't done before, because here's my thought: if I go in and I train chest, and let's say that I do this, and this was my own personal evolution. So if I used to do 4 or 5 exercises, say. And I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, Skip. I'm just this is my what worked for me, But if I go in and what I used to do was, train 4 or 5 exercises once a week, and then my shoulder was really bothering me. I recognized, okay, I can get through about 2 exercises, but then if I keep going, man, my shoulder just bothers me and I don't get as good of a workout, so I'll stop. And then I was like, well, then I'll come back and I'll do a couple more exercises later in the week. And then I started realizing, my first couple exercises, if I go into the gym and I'm doing the pro split or the bro split, those first couple exercises have a lot more to them than the last couple. The last I'm doing flies and I'm just pumping more blood into the muscle. I feel like I can train super intense for the first couple exercises, but I can't maintain that level of intensity personally through the rest of the workout. If I go in there and I do a max effort bench press of some type for 10 reps, I'm not going to be able to do that an hour from now, 15 sets down the road. But if I were to hold off and come back in a few days, I could repeat that again. So to me, I felt like my time in the gym was more effective because every time I trained, everything was that real intense, harder stuff.
And you make very good points. I mean, that's what we're cutting to, and that's the individual component of, because where you can come back another, say, 3 or 4 days later, my joints are pounded.
Yeah.
So if I come back, I'm looking at it, and I also look at it from a proactive type standpoint too. And this is part of me being older, is I'm like, well, if I train twice a week, I'm giving myself exactly 50% more opportunity to injure myself, where while I'm in there and the more work that I do, and when I say higher volume, I don't mean, as an example, I do 8 working sets for chest, not counting warm-up. So, I'm not on this huge volume kick, but at the same time, it comes back to that recovery. And if you're able to, I'll be honest, if I was able to recover and my joints felt good, I probably would train more frequently, but I know to do that, I would have to pull that volume back. And it's just something that, because I enjoy the process of it's already difficult for me to pull back to 8 sets. I want to go in there and just bomb shit. I want to bomb shit until this is what a lot of people do. They stop when they no longer can maintain, or they start to lose the pump. And if you're going to go to that level, I'm not going to knock you for doing it because you love being in the gym. But the reality is a large majority of people, if that's when you're going to stop, you're likely, that's a load of volume that you're not going to be able to recover from.
Another thought
goes back to, just because you like it doesn't mean it's effective.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I also found too,
or most effective. It's probably still effective to some degree, but
I found that I did better for a period of time with higher frequency after I had done lower frequency for all of my life. You know, just by simply switching it to higher frequency, things got better. And I've done that with clients too. And I think that it works to a point. You know, it's different. You know, if you're used to getting triggered once every week, then going to twice every week is something that's going to be different. And if you've been doing that for years, then that could be, you know, does it work? It could work, because I think anything can work for a while. You know, it could be an option.
Well, why does it? Well, I guess, why is he automatically going to train in everything twice a week? I mean, that is quite a bit of frequency and volume in terms of, you know, the whole body. Like, why not maybe structure it for like a 4-week phase or so where he's training his back twice a week because he's trying to bring it up, and then a 4-week phase where he's trying to bring his push muscles up, and then a 4-week phase where he's hitting his legs twice a week, versus I'm going to do the Ronnie Coleman, you know, 6 days a week, hitting everything exactly twice a week. Like, not all, like, no one's built like that except for him. So I don't think just rushing into doing everything twice a week is effective or even smart, for one thing. I think, you know, start with increasing your volume on your worst body part. You know, like, if your back is weak, start hitting that twice a week and go from there, and make sure you're recovering, because the worst thing you want to do is add a second workout in and then not be able to, when Monday comes around or whatever day is day one in your program, go back to that same muscle group and either be sore or have a less effective workout. So
yeah, you're doing twice as much work and not getting any more progress. I mean, that you got to really love the gym, because there are other things you could be doing with that time than wasting it.
What's your frequency like, Andrew?
Right now I'm doing exactly what I got serious about bodybuilding again about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And just what I described.
Cool.
I'm doing, you know, a leg day, a push day, a pull day, an arm day, and then we have back. I train my back again, more of like a pump style workout. So I'm not going to be doing as many bent over rows or any of that type of stuff, but and then working more Terry's on that day. And so I'll do that for 4 to 6 weeks until I feel like I've gotten a good run out of it. And then I'll maybe add extra volume in for, say, legs, you know, for a 4 or 5 week phase. And then maybe I'll do chest and shoulders if I feel like they're lagging behind, that kind of thing.
When I started with push-pull legs, I tried to do 6 days a week, and it was too much for me. So I went to 5 and eventually went to 4, and then 4 and even into 3 at one point, because I just knew, I was like, if I give it one more day, I'll be so much stronger. It was kind of a obsessive thing, I think, at the time. I'll just chuck this one in here, and we got some stuff in the live feed too. Advice for someone with body dysmorphia, specifically fear of gaining fat.
You're in good company.
Okay, but technically, yeah, I agree with that. But is I don't, and again, I don't want to pick the question apart, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page. I don't see the fear of fat gain as body dysmorphia. I see body dysmorphia as you don't view your body realistically as far as what it is. Am I off base here? Is that how you guys look at it, or am I just?
You're saying when they look in the mirror, they see something different than the rest of us see. Like someone who's got a pretty good physique, all they see is like, oh man, I got a shitty physique.
Exactly.
Right?
Now that's why I ask about this, because if he has body dysmorphia, he has a fear of fat gain. Does he see himself as fat, but he's not? Then I can understand what he's saying. But if he doesn't see himself as fat, but he just doesn't want to get fat, to me, that's not as much body dysmorphia. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm picking it apart, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I think in bodybuilding, there is, and this is a very, very difficult thing, because advice, you can give advice, but your internal processing of your thoughts and how you feel about yourself is not going to change based on 3 meatheads giving advice, on a podcast. It's something you have to process and deal with and kind of overcome. And I think in this industry, we're hard on ourselves and we have high expectations for ourselves, but I don't think that, as a rule, the large majority are truly dysmorphic in the sense that they don't see what is actually there. We just want better and we're never satisfied. I don't see that as dysmorphia. What do you guys say?
Agree 100%. Nothing else to add.
I think, what I bet it is that think about people who feel like, you get used to being super lean, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm fat. When in reality, you're still a lot leaner than the vast majority of people out there. I bet that's what, I wonder if they were formerly fat too, because I do think that plays a role. Like when you've been scarred because you were really overweight, then heck yeah, I could see how people would be really terrified of that, because I've helped people, and I'm sure you guys have too, where they wanted to lose a lot of fat and they were successful with it. And then from there, then the only step is, well, okay, we could add some more calories in, and you could try to use this to grow now. You're in a good spot to put on some muscle. And that's where they get a little leery. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I can relate to not wanting to be fatter. This much more so in my older age. I don't like, when I was younger, I was young. Okay, I get fat. I'm in a bulking phase. It doesn't really matter. Someone see me and I see they're looking at me and maybe they think I'm fat. I'm like, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm bulking. Now that I'm older, it is a very unappealing look. Now I'm just an old guy who's heavier, who works out a little bit. So I do have an issue with it, but I don't, again, and maybe I'm just justifying my body dysmorphia, but I don't see that as dysmorphic. It's just something that I don't want to be. I don't want to look bulky. I don't want to be thick and fat in my gut, things like that. So that's why I was, wondering where you guys were as far as the definition of dysmorphia.
All right. I'm going to go to the live feed. Chase Irons says, I've been getting questions about SHBG on how important it is to keep in range. What are your guys' feelings on that? And do you have any protocols to keep it from getting crushed? Or do you feel it isn't that big of a deal and let it go under range with regards to optimizing gains?
I have no protocols. I don't put too much stock in it. I don't think I've ever seen anything significant one way or the other impeding or progressing someone's gains. But I could be just not looking, the way this person is.
Okay, let me understand, because when you say talking about being crushed, I think let me get the basics out of the way. I think we can all agree that, high SHBG is not going to be great because it's essentially not freeing up as much testosterone. On the same page so far?
Well, yeah, but so I would assume most of our listeners are PED users, and I've yet to see a PED user not have a free testosterone that was exorbitant. Yeah,
I can't disagree with that. But I know I've seen, I would assume you guys have too, where it's not as high as maybe it should be, and then the SHBG is higher. So I'm looking at it going, let me come at it a different way. Part of the reason that I think that TRT, a shift that I've made in TRT, I think we've talked about it on here, and I think you guys have done it or have thought about it too, is using low-dose masteron with testosterone during TRT. And my thought process was to increase the free testosterone more instead of focusing on total testosterone. That's why I think we've all said that total testosterone really isn't as important as free testosterone, because you could have a relatively, especially TRT. I'm going back to TRT because then it would be more pronounced than if you have a 4,000 total testosterone level, and your free testosterone at that point isn't as big of a deal. But if you have a 1,000 testosterone level and you have a low normal free testosterone level with higher SHBG versus a lower SHBG on that same 1,000 total testosterone, then to me that would seem, and again, this is on paper, this isn't quantifiable. You can't look and go, well, you'd have better gains. It just makes sense logically that on paper, if your free testosterone were higher on a total testosterone of 1,000 milligrams, that you would benefit more from that than you would if your SHBG was higher. So, as far as a protocol, I would, look, it comes back to the idea or the concept around the masteron with testosterone to lower SHBG. And I do think that they're, again, on paper, that is logical to me. And I like logical things. In the end, if it doesn't pan out practically, okay. But on paper, it makes sense. So to give that a run and see, how it goes, that's kind of my thinking behind that. But that's the only thing I can think of as either that or Proviron, obviously. But, there's an argument, too, that if your testosterone levels, like you were saying, Andrew, if they're very, very high, then what's the difference between a very small change in, in free testosterone if the SHBG were a little bit lower. That I can't really answer, other than what it looks like on paper.
All right. You can throw in some boron too, though. That'll help increase the free testosterone. I don't know how much that's going to help someone that's already at super physiological levels of testosterone. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if your testosterone levels are like 4,000 total and your free test is, hundreds, I don't know if adding a little bit of boron is going to help versus, like you said, the TRT person who's on 125 mgs a test a week, but their free testosterone is looks a little hypogonadal. I think the boron will help them in that situation.
What I think is throwing me a little bit about his question is, and I'm just going to be honest. You guys, know me. I hope the learner or the listeners know I'm pretty transparent. If I don't know something, I admit that I don't know something. The question kind of implies that low SHBG or too low of SHBG levels will somehow make gains less optimal. I don't see that, because the lower the SHBG, the cat's just tearing into the chair.
Is that what that is?
Sorry about that. Got to keep those claws sharp because of all the wild animals that come through and threaten their lives.
You never know.
High-rise apartments. 22nd floor. Exactly. A lot of crazy shit, dangerous shit going on out there. But anyway, it implies that he's saying that the low SHBG could potentially get in the way of gains. I don't see that, because the lower the SHBG, maybe if they're crushed. I haven't seen a crushed SHBG. I don't think with any of my clients. I mean, I've never seen that. So I almost want to say, unless you're just absolutely bottoming that bitch out like it's, a 9 estrogen level, I don't think you're going to really run into a situation where it's going to get in the way of your gains being optimal. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm, like I said, I'm going on record as saying I've not heard of that, and maybe he has. You guys ever hear
I agree with you.
The free androgen theory hypothesis, I think it's called? Scott Stevenson was talking about it.
Refresh.
Yeah, Scott Stevenson was talking about it, and he would have to explain it again, but it painted SHBG as being possibly like a transporter. Maybe we needed SHBG to be able to transport. I guess that I would be interested to suggest Chase to look that up and see if any of that, because it's not something I can explain, but I thought maybe since SHBG is something he's interested in, maybe it's something he could dive into and it would spark some new ideas for him. That was all.
I'll do a little research and maybe we can make a little do a little 5-minute talk about it next time.
Okay. I'm sure Scott would be happy to talk about it too. We had talked about it quite a while ago, and it was one of those things. I remember, SHBG, because it's like I remember coming up in bodybuilding, we used to always think oh man, you want to keep that SHBG low. You know what I mean? You want because you need your free test to buy and all that, and it's and then all of a sudden,
I don't think you ever want to have 0 or something. I don't think you want to ever crush anything. For instance, we know that crushing your estrogen is absolutely stupid.
Right.
In terms of muscular gain and fat loss, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think I don't think we want to see it crushed, and I've never seen it crushed on somebody either.
Yeah, neither have I. That's the thing that's kind of throwing me. I don't think I've ever seen it really in the basement, but.
All right, we got another listener question here on the live feed. I have took 900 milligrams of Test E, 600 EQ, 600 Mast E weekly, 1 milligram of Arimidex a day, okay, and 5 units of GH. Excuse me. I want to go tomorrow to a cruise of 150 milligrams of Test E a week. My target was fat loss and build muscle. Now I am 330. I was 360. Excuse me, 360. But I think I plateaued. That's why I want to cruise. Did intermittent fasting. Let's see. He had another thing. Let me add this. Do you have any tips what I could do better next time in terms of gear and diet? I want to start next blast mid-May.
God, there's a lot of information. I mean, that's a very small amount of
I'm
information to go on. You know, he gives the weight, but really no other measure as far as whether that was a good, solid run, and you know what his body composition looks like. You know, things like that. He asks about diet. So my go-to, you know, my response typically in a situation like this is rip that diet apart before you even begin to rip the gear protocol apart, because, you know, despite the fact that there could be more optimal numbers or ratios for compounds for dosing, it could be less compounds, whatever, you're still in an anabolic environment with that gear there. Whether it's overkill or not is debatable. But I would be digging into that diet if you don't feel that your last run was terribly effective. I would go to the diet way before and rip the shit out of it and evaluate it and dig through that before I would go with the gear. Because if your diet and everything is on track and your training is good and it's optimal and it's efficient and you're recovering, that amount of gear, you know, playing with the gear ratios and everything else probably isn't going to make a significant change as much as looking at your training and your diet protocol.
Yeah, because he could really diet on. I mean, he could continue to. Oh, we lost Andrew. He'll come back, I'm sure. Maybe he
didn't like my answer.
He didn't.
He's like, fuck this clown. Fuck this clown.
Don't you think like that he could, like, you don't need, the gear isn't really going to create the fat loss, right? I mean,
no question.
I think that's,
and if that's what he's getting at, sure. Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people do get into that, especially when it comes to tren. I'm going to get so lean on tren. It has a very, very minimal impact. Maybe more so than a few other compounds. But the point is it's certainly no fat burner. So I would not ever approach my AA cycle or programming for your cycle from a fat loss standpoint. Let the diet, cardio, arguably your training. And I only say the training because if you're training high volume and more higher frequency, you are going to burn more calories and you're going to tend to be more depleted than if you're lower volume and less frequent. That's just calories in, calories out. A lot of people think that the training isn't aerobic, and it's not aerobic in a sense, but you can still burn more calories with a higher volume. What's that?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, you're burning calories. Yeah, you definitely are. Yeah, and I would almost think if he wants, I mean, he's got time. He said it looks like he's only going to take a month's downtime if it's April now, and he says he wants to start back up in May. That's not a lot of time to take down to recover, but you know, to each their own. Just be aware of that. Right. But my thought would be is if you're at 330 now, yeah, like you said, Skip, if he starts to really work on that diet and get to the point where he can get consistent fat loss, then you add the gear in after that. You know what I mean? Like that. Right. I almost feel too like with gear, once you start a cycle, you're kind of on the clock. You know, and I almost don't want to, with somebody who has a lot of fat loss, I don't necessarily want to start that cycle right away. Like I want to get as much as we can before we start the cycle, you know, but I think we a lot of times associate with being on the gear with that being the answer, you know, versus, you know, that being the result versus it's really the way you look at the end of the day is the result. So the gear is just one of many tools, you know?
Yeah. And he's not missing out with that. I mean, that gear dosing in those compounds, it's not like, oh, if you added one thing, it would be so much better.
Yeah.
He's that dosing in those compounds, that's pretty solid. I would rip into the training and the diet.
Yeah. What's up?
Hey, glad to have you back.
The only other thing I would add is, did he say he's going to start blasting again in May?
Yeah.
Which is 4 weeks away. And he just started cruising like very, very recently. Yeah. My advice would be like, you know, I don't know your health situation, but like I don't tell any of my guys to take 6 weeks off and let's jump on again. That's just me, you know. 8 weeks would be the minimum, I think. Blood work on both ends. And more likely it's going to be closer to 12 weeks in between cycles. That's just me. Yeah. You know, I never, ever want to have a reputation of hurting somebody's health. And I know you guys don't either. And it's just, you know, I'm going to play it a little bit more cautiously versus, you know, gains. So,
yeah. Well, especially at that weight. Didn't he say he was 330 and he went to 360? Is that he was talking about a scale?
He was at 360 and he went to 330. He was cutting, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And that's cool that he came down, but that's a big individual. So there's another reason. Now, listen, I'm not going to say that if you weigh, 190 pounds of being on all that gear and not taking taking time off or taking a longer cruise is a great idea either. But if you compare the two, someone who is just larger at 350, 360, 330 versus someone who's 200 pounds, your heart, your systems and everything, there's quite a bit more going on there, because I have to assume this body fat level, is higher than most 200 pound people. He probably has a higher body fat level. So then you have the potential for more sides when you're heavier and holding more water. And then you got heart and kidney stress and things that come along with being larger and having a higher body fat level.
I almost feel like if I were to try to set up goals with this guy, obviously I can't say for sure, because we're, like you said, Skip, we don't have a ton of information. So we're kind of filling in a lot of blanks here, right? But if we were to say he was, substantially, like he had a lot of fat that he needed to lose still, and he's at 330 now, I almost feel like, hey, let's keep you on the TRT. Let's really buckle down with the nutrition. Let's get you to let's set a goal, right? Like maybe let's get you to 300. Okay. Yeah. And then let's start the cycle versus we're going to get back on it. Cause I just want to impress upon him that it's the gear being on or off isn't going to make a huge difference in your fat loss, so. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Can I also make another statement that maybe when people are giving us questions like this, they accompany a front and back photo so we can get a general idea of conditioning level. Are we looking at, Ronnie Coleman 300 pounds, or are we looking at, an offensive lineman 300 pounds,
Right.
Yeah. If we can, Patreon, they can do that. Or on Facebook, the group, they can. I can't get pictures here, I don't think, on the, I can't. Yeah. They'd have to send them separately. We'd have to prepare ahead of time.
And I think the three of us are pretty easy to find on social media to be able to send pictures too. It would really help. It would allow us to give and some people aren't comfortable doing that. I don't blame them for not wanting to. But if you are comfortable with that, it would allow us to give you a better critique or more of a detailed response, because we would just have that much more information.
Okay. Seal rows. What are your thoughts? Alfonso's back. What are your thoughts on the seal row bench?
Alfonso.
And the exercise in general? It looks like it is more effective than barbell rows.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the fuck it is.
You do. You've seen it. You've seen it.
I probably have, but I can't put the name, the label with what it is. So...
You want to tell me?
I call it a skip row.
So lay down. Lay down. Yeah. Lay down on a bench, and you're going to pull a barbell, just like you would in a barbell row.
Oh,
but you're laying down on a bench.
All right.
And
cool.
ideally, the bar. There's a couple different setups for the bar, right? In my gym, we don't have cool bars for that, so I got to use a straight barbell, and I don't get the fullest range of motion I would absolutely like. But you do know how they make some of those bars with the what do you call the divot or the U or something taken out of it, so you can actually pull back farther without the bar touching your chest or the pad. Or you've probably seen some of those. I can't remember who makes one. Maybe it's Prime, where it's just the handles, and then there's basically no bar connecting. It's the handles. I'm trying to show with my hands, and it makes a big. Imagine a square with the top part cut out, so the weight's just hanging down here.
Yeah.
So you're able to get the fullest range of motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
So anyway, it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite back exercises for sure.
You can't cheat that one. You know what I mean? It's a hard exercise to cheat. They have. I think it's getting to be more popular now too. Maybe it's because it's kind of like a throwback thing, but I've seen gyms getting the seal row bench that, it's like a standard bench, but it's higher, so that you have more clearance underneath. And then I've also seen a plate load, or a selectorized machine too. That was a seal row machine that was brand new. I don't know what company made it, but I saw a client using that recently. I was pretty impressed.
Let's argue whether it's more, because he asked, it looks like it's more effective than a barbell row. My opinion on that I would say no. The reason I would say no, not that it's not effective, not that it's not good, a good exercise, but more effective, I would argue no, because it is removing a lot of the stabilization of the erectors, and they take up a pretty good amount of space in your overall back musculature. Here's where I would think now, I don't have one. I mean, I do have access to them at different gyms, Iron Temple, stuff like that. But as an example, I don't have one at Titan. That's where I train in this place up here in West Palm. I don't have access to one. If I did, I would use it much like I use a supported T-bar. And that would be, there's two main things I would do. If my lower back is bothering me, because I do have a history of chronic lower back issues, but I'm good now. So I have a lot of history with that exercise because I didn't have to deal with back pain and I could still row relatively heavy, which it tends to crush your ability to breathe. And I have argued that it's kind of like mild CPR. It has to somehow impact that pressure on your sternum on a supported T-bar. I know it's not the same exercise. It has to somehow maybe impact your heart in some way while you're trying to breathe heavy and there's a lot of fucking weight on there. But anyway,
it's hard to breathe, isn't it?
It is it's crushing of the sternum. And I just feel like this is what CPR would feel like. And if CPR gets to my heart and it's trying to continue to pump and keep blood circulating while I'm on the verge of death, then I don't know if this is a good idea. But where I would use it, where I would use the seal rows, where I use the supported T-bar, that is to kind of pre-exhaust prior to a regular barbell, where you are using your erectors for stabilization. That way, to me, again, coming from an age situation and a lower back vulnerability situation for years, I would rather fatigue my entire back musculature minus the erectors, then go in with fresh erectors to be able to kind of push. I would consider the barbell row much more of a compound movement, even though they're both compound movements, than a seal row. So that to me would be almost like a pre-fatigue to go in, and then my erectors are fresh, and I can continue to push it a little higher. Again, not saying it's not an effective exercise, but I would put barbell row quite a bit higher in overall back development than I would a seal row. But that's if I have to pick between those two. Shoot me down, Andrew. Come on, throw it at me. And seriously, because I mean,
you're just. You're just completely wrong, Skip.
You have to say why, though.
I know. It's the lag, okay? Because I don't want to say something and then have you, Kip, like we're talking over each other. But anyway, all right, I'm going to say that I'm going to go against you. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm going to say I have a different opinion in the sense that it's more effective because of the range of motion that I can get with a seal row versus a barbell row. And being on that other end of 35 where I do not like to load my back in those unsafe positions, I'm either too scared to do anything effective in terms of a barbell row, or B, I do it and I get hurt, and then I'm not doing any type of row for 3 or 4 weeks of that nature. Right. So to me, the seal rows are much more effective. But again, like we also disagree on the T-bar row, whereas I really love the chest supported T-bar row. I think I might just be a better breather than you, but that's about it.
That may be. Now, I will say this. This is a little bit, I don't want to make it look like I'm backpedaling, but the old school Icarian supported T-bar is more upright. The newer ones they make are they're not inclined enough, and that is what is crushing on the sternum. When you're more upright, like the old school Icarian ones that are like 30 or 40 years old, that's not crushing into your sternum. But the newer ones they make over the last 20 years or so they're not as high of an incline. They're lower, and that just crushes. It just makes it so difficult. The other thing is I'm probably rowing with more weight than Andrew. Next question. before he gets to the
real quick, next question. Yeah. I was going to say what Andrew said too. I was going to side with that like I can possibly do more with a chest supported row without having to worry about my lower back. But that to me is almost getting into our original conversation, about free weights versus machines. So,
True.
What's this here? Okay, here's something really important question we have here from Lucas. He says, good debate. It's time to hear from you and the guys. Which utensil do you use for eating your meals? Fork or spoon? And additionally to that, do you use plates or bowls Do you have a favorite set that you take with you when traveling?
That's a good question.
We need to know. I need to know these things about you guys.
I can say this right out of the gate.
Start this one off because I'm on my travels right now.
Yes. What are you eating out of,
Take
Andrew?
it. Run with it.
Okay, so I brought one plastic Tupperware container with the meals that I had with me for the day of travel on Thursday. What I do is I put my food in Ziploc bags, right? And then I just use one container. When it's time to eat, I pull it out and I eat from that. But anyway, we didn't pack more than that in terms of containers. So basically, I make a meal, I eat it, I put it on the floor so the dog who's with us can clean it up for me. I go to the sink, I put a little water in there, and maybe I half-ass wash it. And then I fill it up for my next meal for 2 or 3 hours later. So in terms of utensils, I've been alternating between fork and spoon, favoring the spoon. So, and it's plastic.
Oh. Unless it is soup. And my kids take after me for this one too, which is kind of cool that I've, impacted them positively in some way during their lives so far. But unless it's soup, I refuse to use a spoon.
Really?
Or I refuse. Yeah, that's the only time I use a spoon. I will eat, and this is what they do now too. I eat ice cream with a fork, and I will not eat it with a spoon. It drives me cereal, obviously.
Why?
So soup or I don't know. You can't dig into ice cream with a spoon. It just does. But you can dig in with a fork, and you can kind of scoop it out and get.
Yeah, you can.
I am a fork guy. I will eat rice with, and it's funny that you said the bowl on the plate. I hate bowls, unless again it's soup or something. If I have even if you're gonna go get spaghetti or you're gonna get some kind of pasta, I'm never putting that shit in a bowl. And I can look at it and go, okay, it's contained there. It might be easier. No, I have to. How you shove your food around to try to pick it up with a fork? I would rather do that on a plate with a fork. That's me. It is what it is. Bash me.
Oh my God! How do you get to when you get to the bottom of the ice cream? How do you get like the last? Oh, you got to tip the okay.
Yeah, and then you take the fork and you scrape it sideways in there as it runs down into your mouth. It's done. It's a perfect setup.
Oh, I missed our comments. I
don't ever want to hear those words. I don't ever want to hear those words coming from your mouth again, Skip.
I missed our comments. Scott Stevenson, he said he prefers the walrus row. That's Scott's not a dad, but that was a dad joke, Scott. He's a dog dad. I'm thinking back. I used to have a mixing bowl. It was a red mixing bowl that a lot of my food would go into. And after having watched like Ronnie Coleman, I'd get those grits packages and I'd empty those things out in there, and I'd take about a dozen cooked eggs and I'd dump them in that mixing bowl, and I'd take a big spoon. And I still use the big spoons today. I don't use the regular size spoon, which Jimmy with us, he had a point. He said he uses the small spoon to make his meals last longer. And he says Tupperware because he's lazy. So, but I would take the big spoon and then I take those eggs, maybe a slice of like the fat-free cheese or something in the off season, and just mix it all up, and then just eat that for like the next 45 minutes because it weighed like 8 pounds of combined grits and eggs.
Can we talk about that meal that Ronnie Coleman ate for breakfast every day during prep, which had like 200 grams of carbs, 40 grams of fat, 100 grams of protein, and it was like a saucer bowl or a mixing bowl.
Yeah.
And then actually, I just want to talk about his diet in general. Like, he went out to eat twice a day at like Black Eyed Peas and Outback Steakhouse, and he had cornbread.
Yep.
And like, I just want to run into Chad Nichols and be like, hey, was that actually his diet, or were you feeding him up for that weekend that you guys were filming? Because I'm like sitting here as like a bodybuilder, I'm like, his off-season diet is like, or I mean, his pre-contest diet is dirtier than my off-season. Like, how's he get to do this? Yeah. So, by
the way, Chase Irons is with you, Skip. He says in the off-season, the seal row suffocates him. He says my gut suffocates me, and
it's probably because we both have enlarged hearts and a very, very small cavity, chest cavity.
And Larry says, "You what?"
No, go ahead. Original Icarian, yes.
Yeah, Larry has the original Icarian rowing horse at my gym, and it's great for being able to row heavy without straining my low back and knees. Yeah, is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, if it's Icarian, I'm pretty well. He says horse. I don't know what he means by that, unless that was an autocorrect and it meant it was supposed to say something else. Unless maybe
that's the name.
Term that
It'd
I
be a
have
good
not heard
name.
Before. Yeah.
The rowing horse.
I think because you mount it like a horse. You mount the seal row machine like a horse.
It could be, and I don't ever want to hear you say that again either. So there you go.
All right, what else do we have going on here? There was some other good stuff here. Let's see. Wait, I had some stuff from Patreon, so I should probably take those. A lot of people appreciated your dad advice, by the way, Skip. There was a lot of people who said thank you.
Oh, yeah?
For that. Yeah.
Cool.
Another off-topic one. We'll go back to that. Jim McDonald. This is the one I was looking for. He says, my question was triggered by the discussion last week about acne after a cycle. The consensus was it was likely due to abrupt hormone changes. This is actually why I titrate down at the end of a cycle. It seems to me that titrating down is generally shat on. What do you guys think?
It's the past tense of shit. Very well.
That was very good. Yeah.
Very good syntax there. I like that. Well done. Titrate down. Here's the thing that I don't think it's a bad idea. But I've always been a proponent of the fact that if you're using long esters, they do. I know it's very, very old school. I get it, but they self-taper. I mean, your Cypinates, your Nanthates, your EQs, even DECA, things like they just kind of self-taper, and you're likely, far more likely than not, to come back online without having to taper down. Shorter esters, different story, that sort of thing. But I will say this. I think going up, when your hormones go up abruptly or come down abruptly, yes, you run a higher chance of more breaking out and that sort of thing. But I still think without the abrupt rise, I think the rise in general and the drop in general, because everyone has different sensitivity levels to shifting or altering hormone levels, I still think you can break out. So titrating down may help, but don't be surprised if you do titrate down, or even titrate up for that matter, that you may still break out. Let's put it this way. If you are prone to breaking out, pretty much any increase or decrease, whether abrupt or not, puts you in a situation where that is where you're most likely to have breakout concerns versus stable levels high or stable levels low.
Yeah. It used to be people pyramided their cycles in general. They would start low and then go up and come back down. And I think that's what is shat upon nowadays. Is that what you guys think he means by that? Because a lot of people are like, you don't need to pyramid anymore.
I took it as the tapering back down at the end of the cycle that he was saying that people were shitting on.
Yeah.
And I do hear that too. And I think a lot of that comes from coaches will want their athletes to go off the drugs because either they're planning out their year and they're planning out. Every athlete wants to take more drugs usually, right? Or they want to extend cycles usually. But I think good, competent coaches are keeping health in the forefront, and they're like, okay, dude, we did this contest prep cycle, and then I let you blast for 6 weeks after your contest. And yeah, we made some progress, but let's not get too greedy with the progress at the expense of long-term health. So rather than tapering off the drugs, they're like, let's go off now. Let's get you down to TRT. Let's start a nice health phase for 10 weeks or so, and then we'll get back to blasting again. So I don't know if it's so much a shit on as it's more like, my athletes have been on this cycle for this long. Like, I really need to get them off from a competency and a health, awareness standpoint.
Yeah.
Let me throw one thing in there, and I think this plays a part. I think you guys will agree. Maybe not, but I think these days, okay, it's kind of an antiquated system to taper down. I think we can all agree on that. But when that was happening, most people weren't transitioning to TRT dosages. They were transitioning off. So these days, when you transition off cycle, I think more often than not, people are transitioning to TRT dosages. That's why I don't think it's nowhere near as important to titrate or to come down and kind of decrease those levels. And it's even better to let them self-taper, because you're not coming all the way down to where your HTPA has to kick back in. You're coming back down to TRT dosage. So it's already self-tapering, any long esters that you have. And then you're not dropping into the basement. You're dropping to roughly, I'm guessing, assuming that most people are right around 1,000, just because I think that TRT is wasted unless you're at 1099. But that's just me. Blood levels, not milligrams, for the record.
What's this one? Another off topic. Which mild inconvenience would you inflict on your arch nemesis for the rest of their lives? Trend cough and night sweats, even if they're natural. One nostril always being clogged. Every time they go poop, it's an emergency. Every traffic light is red when they get there. Or earbuds/headphones fall off or speaker cuts out every time they begin their working sets. Ooh, those are some brutal ones.
I like this. That's very good sense of humor. I already like Jonathan. That's damn good.
This is great. I'll try to leave
all
this
of
up
those
here.
are really good.
Yeah, they are. Move this over
Which
here.
one we have to pick one, right?
Phew. Yeah.
I'm going to go with the one that's most annoying to me, or was, until I finally fixed my earbud situation. And I would throw my shit when I had wires. I would throw a tantrum like a fucking child in the gym, like kicking the air, like to the point where you almost like feel like you're going to fall over. You're so mad. It was the most pathetic display. So I would say that's probably the red light one is damn close though.
That's
the trend sweats. That one's brutal. That one's brutal. But that red light thing is there too if you're in a hurry. I'm going with earbuds. What do you guys do?
I'm going nostrils. And I'm going from this standpoint. How fucking annoying is it when you're trying to sleep and you can't breathe out of your nose? For me, I put a premium on sleep. All that other stuff, trend sweats, shit, I'll deal with that now. That's not a problem for me.
Right.
What else? The headphones, okay. Yeah, I can see how that'd be annoying, especially in prep when you want your headphones on to do your cardio. I'm down in Orlando right now. Every traffic light is red as it is. So,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with, I put such a premium on sleep, which is, and why I look like trash right now. I've had 3 hours of sleep the last 4 nights in a row. But the one nose clog thing, that drives me nuts, where when you can't sleep at night and you're trying to, blow it out, you're doing the neti pot, it's not working. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Dude, that one's my life. I have a terribly deviated septum, and I live I've got nasal spray for one of my nostrils, doesn't work right, and so then you get hay fever, and when you have a constricted airway, it's like this little tiny space, and then it gets worse because you get allergies. It's I would not wish that on my worst enemy, but I think we've all dealt with all of these. I'll just any of these things would really suck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
For the record, I don't get the night sweats. I never have.
No, never have. Never, not once. You've never got night sweats.
No. I honestly, now the cough. Oh Jesus!
Oh God!
The cough. Don't even get me started.
When I read the bathroom one again, every time it's an emergency, that one
that's pretty bad.
Close. Actually, you know what? That one's pretty bad. Like any of those other things, you're not going to make a disaster on yourself if you don't get to where you need to go, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can plan ahead if you had to.
Yeah.
Take extra time.
I already deal with that. If I go into Whole Foods and I got to take shit, it's all I can do to get to the bathroom. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's like I have IBS or something.
Well, so I've got a friend that's he's like a germaphobe, right? But he will use the public restrooms to go number 2. But when he goes in there, he brings plastic bags to step on. He takes his pants fully off and folds them and hangs them on the door. Takes his underwear off, folds it, puts it on the door, because he does not want any part of his pants to touch the floor and then walk out of there. And I'm like, dude, you're getting naked in a public restroom. You're telling me you think that's more sanitary than whatever's on the ground touching the scuff? Yeah, that's exactly what he's telling us. This stuff where we and Rachel look at each other what the fuck? So yeah,
I kind of do that, and I take pictures of it. I take pictures of my shorts hanging on the coat hanger on the back of the door, and I'll tell you why. Because guys are fucking horrible, and they can't get their fucking piss in the toilet. So there's piss on the floor, and it grosses me out. And I don't want my shorts, because I live in Florida, but even when I live in Colorado, I wore shorts. Yeah. Not gonna touch that piss. I'm with your buddy on this one. So you and Rachel can make fun of me when you get off, when we get done with the podcast.
Yeah, but so why can't you just like arrange your shorts, like fold them up over your knees and pull them down at the same time? If you get what I'm saying.
No. I know what you're. And you know what? I'm an old guy. I wear old guy cargo, Ralph Lauren. It's not gonna work. So then if I have them up too high, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna piss on myself or piss on. I don't know. I just don't do that. I hang them up. There's no way that I will literally damn near clean the floor, but once you clean it, you're just wiping up the piss. There's still like piss stuff there. God. I do not want my shorts touching my ass. I don't care. Sometimes I'll just go in and I piss in the sink. That way there's no issue at all. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding, but still it would be cleaner.
I remember Dave Palumbo talked about on his podcast, this is years ago. He said, when I go in the bathroom, what did he say? He said, I wash my hands before I pee, because my hands they have germs on them, and I feel like my dick's been in my pants, so it's clean, and I don't want to get the germs from outside onto it when I touch it to pee. He's like, so I wash my hands first, and then I'm good, and my dick was already clean, so I don't have to wash my hands when I leave. That's what
you said.
You ever think of this though? So you go into a bathroom stall, like you do your business. You're touching stuff as you go out to wash your hands.
Yes, right? Yeah.
But then the next person goes in there and they're touching stuff, and then they touch themselves. Like, isn't that how you transfer bacteria? And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying there? Like, there's that intermittent. Yeah. Yes, you're not bringing it outside of the bathroom, but the exchange is happening from guy to guy or girl to girl as they do their business from the stall to, like, I'm always like, there's got to be some system around that where, like, either using your foot to open doors or, I don't know, like, maybe I think too much into it. Normally I don't care, but I'm not taking my pants off in a public restroom ever.
Maybe that's how I got crabs that time. Because I still can't explain how that. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
All right. You got another one here from Mina. This is from Patreon. He says, he says 4 because Nate was going to join us tonight, but he had a guest posing yesterday, by the way. I saw he looked fantastic. Yeah. So freaking shout out to him getting to do a guest posing too. That's awesome. Mina says, since you 4 have been coaching for quite a while, how would you say each of you have progressed as coaches? Any ideologies you've adopted or left behind? Any times you look back and wish you had done something a little different? And he also says, fun question, F, marry, kill, sushi, pasta, pizza. So we'll put that one on hold for a moment and deal with the other question first.
Gosh, what comes to mind off the top?
Oh, you know what?
Go ahead, because I'm thinking. I'm like,
I got one thing, because I don't really think my philosophies have changed a lot, because I'm not really dogmatic or my way the highway. It's always like I want to see what a client's doing and then offer my 2 cents into how I can shore up things. So it's not like, people are like, oh, are you a high carb coach? Are you a high fat coach? And I've changed my philosophy in that way. No, not at all. I think all of us coaches are pretty open to continuing to learn or continuing to go with what the athlete or seeing what works with that athlete and doing more of it and doing less of the things that don't work. But I will say that I used to always get accused, or I guess I get the questions of, they send a check-in, I send a response, and it's a very quick response because everything's great and there's nothing to change. And I get are you mad at me, coach? Yeah. Or, did I upset you? Am I not doing my check-ins properly? And then, of course, I'm like, no, everything's good, or so for me, it's like what I say, please just take it at face value. Like I'll say if like, hey, something's wrong. But anyway, what I was going to say, and I think I told you guys about the other day, is I started using the Loom software, which allows you to record yourself while you're looking at updates and, giving feedback as you're typing or as you're going over their progress pictures. And I think that helped people out, because as soon as I started doing that, a lot of clients were like, oh my God, this is the best check-in response ever. Like, thank you for using this, et cetera, because I think it gave them a little bit more of a personal edge.
That's cool.
And since then, I haven't had anyone saying, hey, coach, like, you know, all you said was yes. Like, is there anything wrong? You know, are you upset with me? You know, and it eliminates all those, like, hey, sometimes yes just means yes. Like, you know, like, should I add 200 grams of carbs today? Yes, you know, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one thing that I've done that has helped, I think, change, I guess, clients' perception of my mindset with how I'm dealing with them.
I think mine is similar. I was thinking the same thing in the sense that my philosophies and the things that I do probably haven't changed. I'm sure they've evolved in some, but there's nothing major that stands out. But I am far more, and this is age, this isn't just, I think, with training, but I become more compassionate and understanding, and I have I build better relationships and better I don't want to say I go out of my way, but I work to build a rapport with my clients, not just because of business and it's good business, but because I genuinely give a shit. I think early on I was very matter of fact. I mean, you guys could go back to the boards. I was very matter of fact. I was very blunt. Didn't have time for a lot of what I considered to be kind of extra bullshit, and that kind of, you know, gave me that label of kind of being insensitive and cold and that sort of thing. I think that as I've aged, I think that has kind of disappeared. I've gained more cats, less kids, things like that. And it's just kind of, I think as I age, it just kind of changed me a little bit. So coming back to what you were saying, as far as the short comments, here's where it gets me. My dad was in town last week, so I was not ripping through client work, but I was moving through and wasn't being as talkative. And I did get a couple people who did say, is everything okay? You know, because when you have that rapport and then all of a sudden it shifts a little bit and you're not as talkative, then it can stand out, which I actually pride myself on the fact that I think it is important for trainers. He said, here's the bitch. Back then when I did that, there weren't a lot of online trainers. The sea wasn't very big. It wasn't this hugely competitive thing where everybody was a trainer. So I have said over the years, and I think you guys have heard me say this for a very long time, it's not just about the progress. A lot of people are good at what they do, online trainers, and they can get progress. So the little things are going to matter. The relationships that you have and the rapport that you build with your clients from a business standpoint it can be big. That can play into your client retention, that sort of thing. Those little things matter. And I think compassion, I think I'm a little bit more understanding if something happens to where it directly impacts their progress versus just this is all that matters, because I have come to realize over years that this isn't all that matters. There are plenty of other far more important things than some of the things that involve us in our first world problems when it comes to bodybuilding and everything else, which is not to say that it's not important, because that's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is I do have a better perspective on it now these days, and I'm more understanding when a client has issues and things that do come up. And I want to know those situations, because I think as a trainer, it helps us to understand our clients better and to know the struggles and the things they're dealing with. So it's not just, oh, well, I fucked off. There's something legitimate behind it. If you don't have that rapport, then you're less likely to get your clients to be more open with you and trust you enough to tell you those things that they may not want to tell most people. Confide in you in a sense, trust you.
Yeah.
I thought about this the other day. What I maybe not what I do different, but in evolution, I would say that I have a lot more confidence in getting people in shape. Then I'm going to go back to like when I first started coaching, like the first person you have that you get into shape for a contest, it's like, it's exciting. You're like, oh my God, I actually did it. It's like a freaking rush to be able to get somebody there. And I feel like I had a formula, and obviously the formula is different for everybody, but there were pieces of the formula that were going to be the same in each, kind of like Dave Pulcinella has the 6 foods that work. I would say that when I first started, I had a more rigid idea of what it took to get in shape, whereas now I can be more flexible with it. I would say that if somebody already has kind of a functioning diet And it's not like this, the structure of it, the timing of their meals is good. I might not change too much. Like we might be able to just go in and say, okay, I'm going to change some portions and maybe a couple food choices, but maybe this piece right here, maybe that's not ideal, but we'll deal with that later. Because if we change these other things and we change these portions, then, we'll be able to get some fat loss, because I don't need to have it all perfect right away. And it might be a nice way to let them transition in, versus I think when I first started, it was like, this is the way it has to be, these meals
Chicken
have
and
to,
rice, right?
exactly,
Right.
or sweet potato, olive oil, very specific things. And now I do think that, like, no, I'm a lot more flexible than I was, back then.
Mm-hmm.
We got anything else?
Can I add one thing?
Of course.
I add one thing also about like the client rapport and check-ins, because I was thinking about this yesterday, and I actually wanted, because Nate sent me his check-ins, and his check-ins, I know I blow, smoke up his ass a lot, but he is like the best client. Like his pictures, if you say, hey, like years ago, if I'm like, hey, let me make sure you get your feet in your photos, every single time after that since, his whole body has been perfectly in the middle of the photo, 8 feet away, light on him. So I didn't have to say it again and again. And my point was saying this is that, and I don't know how you guys feel about this or if you see it too, but when somebody, when someone sends you your check-in pictures and they want to be a bodybuilder and you give them a critique, like maybe something as simple in their side chest is you need to turn your back shoulder to the camera more so you look wider up top, right? You say it once and then you say it again, right? Maybe the next time because they didn't do it. And you're literally like writing it on their photos with a photo editor, right? So there's no way they're missing it, and you're writing it in their check-in. And then they don't do it again the third time. Now, for me, I assume that you just don't care enough to take it as seriously as I think you should take it seriously. So I'm just going to stop like saying it. You know what I mean? And so I guess what I'm saying here is, as a client, make sure that, like if you're getting feedback, or ask for feedback from your coach about your posing or about how the quality of your check-ins are, or, how your rapport is with them. Like, because there's nothing wrong with like someone saying, hey, coach, like, can you give me a little more? Like, can you let me know generally how you feel I'm doing? That kind of thing. Which I can say that's, I guess what I'm bringing it around to is that's what I was guilty of, was doing the X's and O's, but not necessarily covering, all that extra stuff of like, well, generally the program's going really well. We're 4 months in, you put on 5 pounds, you know what I mean? Like not giving an overall, I guess, recap of what's been going on so far and maybe the future plans, that kind of thing. So I guess I just wanted to touch on how both coaches and clients can be better with each other and get more out of each other.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. All right, I got one more here. This is one of the guys too who had commented on your take, Skip, when we were talking about being a dad and being a bodybuilder. He says, I'm a new dad. Thanks for reading my question on the show. He says, also, Skip, for answering the question. So that was him who actually asked this one. He says, do you guys have any clients that observe Ramadan? Ramadan just started. I think we're 2 days in now. If so, how do you guys set up their training and diets? FYI, during Ramadan, people abstain from eating food and drinking water from sunrise to sunset. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I have 4 or 5 every year. And I've been fortunate enough that probably 3 of them I've had for 3 or 4 years. So it with those clients that I have year after year, because we have a system, it's not much of a change. I already know I know 80% of what needs to be done. I go back and see what we did with the structure for the timing and everything the year before. I ask them if this schedule is still doable for the timing of meals stuff, because every person is still individual. I mean, they have those same parameters around sun up to sundown, but they have each individual deals with that time differently when they sleep, when they work, things like that. Also, it matters if your client is, say, as an example, in the United States versus in the Middle East, because in the Middle East, that population is far more not accommodating, but it's different over there. Like they will change the hours for businesses and things of that nature that will alter the schedule for people who live over there much more so, obviously, than in the United States. So it's an individual type thing. Sometimes, you can only get 3 or 4 meals in, and other people will be able to get 5. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes it may even be the same amount of meals, maybe -1, but the timing around that just changes to where when they train, what time they train, what time they get up, what time they go to bed, all that changes a little bit. So there aren't any, I don't know if there's any real specifics that I can give because there's so many differences from person to person. But I've had clients observe Ramadan. Even here, I will get people at the gym who will ask me about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that for quite a while. So I have quite a bit of experience in that, but probably roughly only 5. I have a handful every year, I think, give or take.
I tend to use that time as, let's not saying ideally, but like, let's say someone's having digestive issues. It might be a time, or like maybe insulin sensitivity or something. I take that as a time to maybe pull a meal back, because they do have a shorter window usually, because as Skip pointed out, in the United States, we're not completely changing, our sleep-wake cycles or our business days to adjust to a religious calendar. We kind of have things set in stone over here. But
well, we would if it was Christian, but anyway, go ahead.
I don't even know that Christian isn't cool anymore. If you notice, like anything,
right.
I'm not going to go into it, but that's not our podcast, right? But my point is that I'll probably pull them back to 4 meals a day, and we might try to do larger meals, but we might just do 4 of their favorite meals and just say, hey, you're going to be taking in 1,000 or so less calories a day for the period of Ramadan, and let's focus on getting digestion better, because it's rare that someone's digestion doesn't improve when you pull a few meals out. Just giving the digestive tract a little bit of a break from the constant protein, constant motility, all the other issues. So we might use it as a time to try to clean up digestive issues. I don't regularly have people observing Ramadan. I think like this year, I think I have 1, and I think in years past, the most I've ever had was like 3 at the same time. It's not ideal for someone to be prepping for a bodybuilding show. And I think I did tell someone that I thought it would be better if we started their prep after Ramadan, just because I didn't think that the show that they wanted to do, I know Rami did it 1 year. It just wouldn't have,
Hassan did
Rami's genetics.
Hassan did this past year, remember?
That's right.
Yeah, it was like right after that he did the Indiana.
Indy Pro, yeah. Which was actually his best look of the year, honestly.
You think so? I thought he looked better like a little later. I thought he started tightening up more. I can't remember though. I just remember wanting to see him leaner at that show. That's all I remember. But
he never got.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
I saw him in person in Tampa, and I honestly, and I'm not knocking his work ethic, because I don't think it's a lack of effort or it's a lack of. I think it's kind of the same thing that Akeem had to go through over those years, where his skin just had to get thinner and thinner. I don't think, because you hear Palumbo on a podcast talking about Akeem fish and spinach for 6 meals a day for weeks on end, double cardio sessions. So it's not a question of the guy not doing the work. And I think it's the same thing with Hassan. I just think he's got that thicker skin that just, it just holds that water or something right in there, that he doesn't get the same kind of conditioning effect that the other guys do.
Yeah. But anyway, though, you're saying not prepping.
Yeah, I just think it's not a great, I think it's a great time when you're doing a diet reset, to try to plan it in, if you are observing Ramadan, because you don't want to keep someone up all night. And well, I know Skip likes to stay up all night, but I don't think you want to completely flip flop someone's circadian or someone's, sleep wake cycle just to try to get meals in. I want to go for sleep over, getting that 6th meal in just to check it off the box.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was just talking with one of the guys I work with, Hamza, the other day. We talked, I think Thursday or so. It was like a couple days before Ramadan was going to start, and with him, here's my thought. Everybody kind of has their own approach, and I think for me as a coach, I need to respect whatever they want to do. For Hamza, to him, he said his approach is that he feels like it would be kind of like trying to cheat the system if he were to stay up and eat all his meals, he feels that what he needs to do is fast, is to do it the way he's supposed to do, and that's his choice for his religion, you know. And I'm like, okay, you can't argue that. You can't tell a guy like, no, bro, you need to stay up all night and eat every 2 hours and sleep during. In fact, he said some people will even say like you're not supposed to sleep late, because some people will sleep later into the day to try to kill some hours. And he was like, no, man, if you're gonna do it right, you know, you're supposed to get up earlier. He was like, that said, I still sleep to noon because that's when he gets up anyway. So,
okay. Well, he didn't change his lifestyle though. He
exactly
adopted his lifestyle to his religious constraints, but he didn't try to fudge or curve the corners a little bit. Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
So
I respect that.
You know, it's like all I can do is say, okay, you know, so be it. I will say, I'll get back to that. And then I had a guy that I worked with who worked at a hospital, and he was on a night shift. So for him, it was like just business as usual, pretty much. And then I have had a couple guys that have eaten through the night. You know, they're like, that's what they wanted to do. And that was their commitment. They're like, hey, that's my commitment, that I take this seriously, but I also take bodybuilding seriously. And it's like, okay, so it's a perspective thing. But I think at the end of the day, it's not going to be a perfect time for bodybuilding. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like just the constraints, you know. It couldn't be like, hey, I'm going to do a world trip where I visit one country every day or every week, you know, and I also want to do competitive bodybuilding. It's like, well, you got to pick what you want to do. And if you want to do, you know, your religious thing with Ramadan, then that's maybe the commitment. You can't expect to do that and bodybuilding 110% at the same time, is my thought.
Can I offer a different perspective on that, actually?
Sure.
In the other way of someone that takes their religion that seriously and follows all the rules, like, I'm going to assume that they're a quality person in the sense that, like, they're not going to cut corners or cheat dieting or training or any of the other, like, they're a serious person. Okay. So I'm going to think it's a wash in the end, in a sense that it doesn't make a difference really in terms of like a negative effect for them. You know what I mean? Because if they're observing, because how many people do you know that are really, really fundamentally religious and follow? I think it's a thing of the past in a sense, right? I mean, like, I don't observe like my parents did, and I don't think my parents observed like their parents did, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So my point being is that if someone is taking it that seriously, I'm going to assume they're a serious person and they're following all the other tenets of their life and playing those to the max as well.
Yeah. And understand too that the United States obviously is different than, you know, Doha or places where I have clients that, you know, there will be prayer at specific times every day, and it doesn't. So it is certainly different in different areas, and because we deal with clients globally and different cultures, I know I'll stand. And this is not to imply, Scott or Andrew, that you feel any differently. I just want to be very clear that in their mind, that conviction is 1 month out of 12 that is a sacrifice that they're willing to make. Most of them don't even give it like a second thought. And I think too, their belief really in, you know, their religion really kind of tells them that they won't be consequenced for it, that they will benefit for it. So even though they may be, you know, losing out from what we would see from it, you know, like, oh, you can't prep or you're not going to be 100% or something like that. They don't view it that way, that when they come back, and it could be argued too, they're going to be fresh. They're not going to be overtrained. Yeah. They're going to, if they have to decrease their, you know, caloric intake a little bit, their system will be running more efficiently, and they'll come out of the gates and they're going to be very motivated to get back at it and start killing it as well. So I do. I like what you said as far as it being a wash. I don't think the big picture, I don't think they lose anything. And even if they did, their commitment and their conviction to their religion is more important at that time. And I respect that. I, being an atheist, don't look at things that way, but I respect the fact that that is important to someone. And from a business standpoint, I'd be a complete ass clown to not be supportive of that.
Yeah. I will say this. One of the things that we learned about Hamza last year was we did a longer off season for him, and we pushed his body weight up. He did really well. And then he, you know, went into Ramadan and he ate just how he wanted. Like, he didn't check in for a month. And then we immediately started prep right after that, like immediately jumped in. And I could tell you that his body wasn't responding the way it had before. So for him as an individual, and I think it was like those long fasts, you know what I mean? Like his metabolism just wasn't kicking anymore. And I realized, I was like, you know, it's a learning lesson. I mean, we still got him into good shape, but it's like, you know, for the shows, but it was a grind at points. And one of the things we learned was like, okay, so we don't start prep right away after Ramadan either. We give you a little period to kind of get you back into your groove and get things firing. Like 4 weeks is like what I think he needs to, you know, really get back. And rebound. Then, rebound, build the food up, and then we can go, you know, so.
One thing you don't want to do as a trainer when you go into Ramadan is you don't want to think you're funny and send a Ramadan diet that has bacon in all 5 meals. Really bad joke.
Yeah. Did you do that?
No, I thought it was hilarious. He thought it was funny because I knew he had a good sense of humor. Yeah. But all I'm saying is, overall, it's more likely to backfire.
Yeah.
than it is to work. You got to really know your client so that comes back to rapport. But don't do that one.
You know what I never thought of? Hamza was telling me, he was like, when you're in a place where everybody observes Ramadan, he was like, it's really kind of not a friendly environment the first couple days. He was like, there's a lot of fights.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I bet, you know, he's like, you get up in the morning, you don't have that smoke in your coffee, and then you get in your car. It's like, yeah, I just want to stay home for the first 48 hours. It'd kind of be like the purge. I'd just be like in my house, you know. Just tired.
You know, though, I think I bet a lot of them get healthier too. Just the benefits of fasting for know, multiple days on end. I bet, you know. Have you guys ever looked into the documentaries or the research on cancer and these fasting institutes? There's one in Russia where these people will fast for up to like 90 days on just water and vitamins, and people that are at like stage 4 cancer, and it brings them back to like, it doesn't eradicate it, but it brings them back to like stage 1. And so they go like 9 months out of the year, go back home, cancer builds back up in their body, they go back to the clinic for 3 months, follow this plan, they lose a bunch of weight, they lose the cancer, and they just kind of run through this cycle. And I mean, I just think of like, you know, if you had a month where you literally have to fast, you're not consuming things that are necessarily bad for you, like it's almost like a health month, like a revitalization month.
I think for some of them though, you're not consuming things that are bad until the sun goes, till a certain time at night, and then you just freaking tear it up. I think for some people that's what's happening.
I'm considering our bodybuilding clients that.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean? That are, you know, high protein, you know, smart nutrition, and then they're fasting, so they're eating less food overall. Like, I just think that they must be going through actually a really positive health transformation.
Yeah.
And then one last point is that I look at the Ramadan thing almost as like, say, a client that says, I don't want to use trend in this prep. So, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, then that's you made that choice, and that I respect that. That's a card that we're not going to play. If you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we got, guys. Andrew, I hope you enjoy your next couple days down there in Orlando. Are you really?
Yeah, we're going, I think in 20 minutes or so, we're going to go get some sushi, this place we go to down here.
Hell yeah.
Soto Sushi, I think it's called. It's really good, though.
Rachel's going to get all freaking pumped up, jacked.
Dude, okay, so I was hanging out with Dom Cardone, and when she comes out, he's like, Jesus Christ, her shoulders are fucking massive. He's like, and so then I'll send the video to you guys later, but the video of her pumping up, there's like 6 striations like in her shoulder that are just like mind blowing.
Nice.
And we actually got to make sure that her shoulders don't get any bigger, because they're going to be unbalanced. Oh yeah. Like, yeah, they're going to be unbalanced soon.
Dude, it's crazy how big girls are getting in bikini. Not all of them, but like on the pro level, there's some muscle on those chicks. Yeah. It's not like it was even 5 years ago.
Well, so that's the other thing, because like Dom was dating one of the professional bikini girls who actually won the whole show.
No kidding.
And I was like, and like he's like getting so pumped up into it. Like I know that feeling too.
Yeah.
And I'm like watching him, and I'm like, did you ever go to bikini or even see a bikini show before you started dating your girlfriend? And he's like, nah, dude. He's like, I thought they were just like that, and Men's Physique were in like this class of like pussies. Like, they don't train, they don't eat like us, they don't do the same things we do. And he's like, I'm like, your opinion's changed though, right? He's like, dude, they're intense. Like, they train as hard as us. Their diets, like, he's like, my girlfriend hasn't eaten all week, like 'cause she had to drop a few pounds for the show. He's like, she just didn't eat.
Oh,
he's
God.
like, I've never had to do that.
Yeah.
But so I think, the professional bikini level it's a whole nother animal out there.
Yeah, it really is.
I like it. I like the progression. I'm much happier to see the way that it's progressing. But the bitches is with every division, this is what happens. They start off small, figures started off small. Oh, you're too big, you're too big. And then the competitors kind of take over and they do what they want. And then they create another division that's smaller behind it. So I'm curious what's going to come next. They already created wellness. They were like, well, we're not going to go smaller. We're going to go a little bigger on the lower body, which was a great move because wellness to me is just the hottest division ever. But I want to see what they do next, not only with the female divisions, but with the male divisions. Where do you go? Snowmobile suits?
All right. Go to Team Skip, teamskip.com. You can reach out to Skip over there. Bodyberry.com. You can reach out to Andrew over there. And we're getting some crossover, by the way, Andrew. You said you had some people that commented because you, of course, you're still part of the Mountain Dog Diet website. And you guys do like a Q&A thing over there. You've got Nate over there, right? And you had some people that say that they liked to see both of the shows, huh?
Yes, I did. And you know what? I'm an idiot because I was supposed to forward you a question, which we'll have to go over next week.
We'll get it next time.
That I think would be, we'll go over next time.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. But yeah, definitely check out more Andrew over there at the Mountain Dog website. Go to our sponsors, truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK. Go to supplementsource.ca. If you're out in Canada, get yourself some ephedrine. And, of course, you can support our programming by checking out our Patreon. I'll have links to that below for Think Big Bodybuilding Media. Skip, Andrew, as always, it has been a pleasure, guys.
Have a good one.
And thank you, everybody, for watching on the live feed. We appreciate having you guys here.